Why has the National Cathedral become the author of such confusion? Well, let's look at some history. The first stone was laid in 1907 in the presence of then President Theodore Roosevelt and 20,000 observers. Then it was pronounced complete in 1990 in the presence of President George H.W. Bush, some 83 years later. It is here that funerals for 3 American presidents had been held: Dwight Eisenhower, Ronald Reagan, and Gerald Ford. There have been presidential prayer meetings for the inaugurations of Roosevelt, Reagan, both Bushes, and Barack Obama. But what makes it Christian? The Bible clearly states that God does not dwell in temples made with human hands. The cathedral was erected by the Protestant Episcopal Cathedral Foundation under a charter passed by the United States Congress on January 6, 1893. It is presently the seat of the Bishop of the Diocese of the Episcopalians and the Bishop of Washington, both who are women. Congress has designated the cathedral the, quote, National House of Prayer. It was here where President Bush spoke after 9/11 to a grieving nation, all brought on by Muslim terrorists. With stained glass windows depicting Moses and statues representing biblical characters, one might briefly think of Holy Scripture, but oh, how things have changed in recent years. Now one can see what might come across as a mockery of religion in a carving of Darth Vader hanging from the roof. Once the Episcopalians might have used the Bible as its guide, but in October of 2013, the not-so-Reverend Gary Hall, chief ecclesiastical leader and executive officer of the National Cathedral, said in a sermon of twisted language that, quote, homophobia and heterosexism are sins. Quote, shaming people for whom they love is a sin, Hall is reported to have said. So, shaming someone for sexual perversion is now a sin. Well, to pollute the matters even more, the not-so-Reverend Marion Edgar Buds, Bishop of Washington, gave her authority and stamp of approval to same-sex marriages. And Hall is reported to have said that, quote, today's generation of LGBT youth will thrive and grow and take their place around the table with Jesus as we bless, forgive, heal, and love the world. Well, some may have heard about an interfaith Christian-Muslim meeting that was held in Germany on November of 2013 at the Reformation Church built to honor Martin Luther. A brave woman named Heidi Mund showed up and gave the crowd a stiff Christian rebuke for defiling the message of Christ by allowing Muslim prayers in the famous church. She was promptly thrown out. Her boldness, however, has led to many invitations to speak in America and has become somewhat of a celebrity. Well, more recently, Muslims have been holding prayer meetings in the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. on Fridays, and another zealous Christian woman showed up in similar fashion recently, and she too was thrown out. Their Facebook page got so much negative response that they started blocking replies. So what does the Bible actually say about interfaith meetings with religions that so obviously attack the cardinal doctrines of the Christian faith? Well, Apostle Paul wrote these harsh words to the Galatians, quote, but even if we or an angel from heaven should preach to you a gospel contrary to what we have preached to you, he is to be accursed. Now, Mohammed supposedly got his revelation from an angel, yet he denied the deity of Christ, the blood atonement, as well as the resurrection, and it is clearly recorded in the Qur'an, quote, believe therefore in God, or Allah as they would say, and his apostles, and say not three, that there's a Trinity. Forbear it will be better for you. God is only one God. Far be it from his glory that he should have a son. That's in Surah 4:171. Infidels now are they who say, verily God is the Messiah, son of Maryam. That's in Surah 5:72. He is God, one eternal. He does not beget, nor is he begotten. Surah 112, verses 1 through 3. Now, John the Apostle, he wrote a warning about extending a welcome to false teachers in his second epistle. He wrote, if anyone comes to you and does not bring this teaching, do not receive him into your house and do not give him a greeting, for the one who gives him a greeting participates in his evil deeds. Get the translation? Rolling out prayer carpets for Muslims in your church is a big problem. So this sounds rather judgmental to some people, and they're going to say, well, doesn't the Bible say, judge not, lest you be judged? Well, that's out of Matthew chapter 7, and they never bother to read the rest of the chapter, which goes on to say in verse 15, beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. And it goes on a few verses further and says you'll know them by their fruit. And then in verse 21 says, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. Many will come to me on that day and say, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name? In your name we cast out demons, and in your name we perform many miracles. Then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. Now, you would think that clerics who study Scripture would learn something from history, but that is not always the case. The New Testament writers often referred to Old Testament Jewish history as examples to learn from. Whenever Israel became unequally yoked to nations with foreign gods, it was only a matter of time until God would turn them over to ruthless foreign armies. Moses warned of this potential problem, and later prophets such as Jeremiah did the same. The liberal crowd in their day would scoff at them and at times threw them in prison. After being invaded by Babylon, about 600 years BC, their first temple in Jerusalem was destroyed, and God got their attention. Another temple was then built, and it was later defiled by Antiochus. The Maccabees rose up and drove out the invaders, and we honored this event during Hanukkah around Christmas time each year. A couple hundred years later, the massive temple that Herod had built was destroyed by the Romans. There now stands a large mosque, a Muslim mosque, on its ancient foundation. Though the United States has chosen a more egalitarian form of government where every Tom, Dick, and Mohammed has their religious liberties, nevertheless, our Judeo-Christian roots should teach us something about allowing the Muslim cult to invade our churches and government offices. This has been compared to inviting in the devil to keep the heating bill down. A very brief comparison of our scriptures will point out that we have nothing in common with them. While Jesus taught to love your enemies and turn the other cheek, Mohammed taught to win through intimidation, taxation, and whacking off people's heads. The Muslims often point this out by citing the conquest of the Jews of CAIR, which stands as a ghost town memorial to this day. When the Muslims conquered Constantinople in 1453, the largest Orthodox church in the world was turned into a mosque. It remained as such until the collapse of the Ottoman Empire after the First World War. Is this where our national cathedral is headed?